just got to stay in the game.
Yeah.
Like if you really want to play, really understand, you have to be, intellectually curious about what you're trying to do. Like, I think that's a prerequisite for any of this.
This is the Insurance Technology Podcast, where we bring interesting people from across the insurance ecosystem to discuss and debate technology's impact on the industry. Join us each episode for insights and best practices from industry stewards and tomorrow's innovators. Now, here's your host, Reid Holsworth.
All right, we're back with Jason Griswold. We start this episode picking up on Jason's career after airplanes and how drones brought him into insurance. It gets really good. Stay tuned. You're really going to like it.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
Holy moly. So then, okay, so that's really recent.
Yeah, so sequencing everything,
yes.
Right? So I'm sure you're wondering, how the hell does this have to do with what you're doing in insurance? Mm-hmm. So in 2015, one of my investors was like, hey, we got to look into this drone thing. It's a happening. And I was like, all right, well, what do you want me to do? He's like, I don't know. We lease aircraft. Should we lease drones? I was like, I have no idea, but we'll research it.
Explain this leasing drones thing to me, because I don't get it. Like, these are like big drones. Like, well, I hear this, but I don't know what it means.
Well, exactly. We didn't know either. And we actually never did it because we didn't, we knew general aviation aircraft.
Right.
We knew what they were worth, and we knew we could take those assets and bring them somewhere else, and they would margin, and we got that. Drones were like, the technology is so new, it's not even approved in the US at the time. But what was interesting is we started to peel it back. We said, all right, let's just go start a company and learn. So we started another company. And we actually became a services business. So we bought a bunch of drones and we hired a bunch of pilots. We started flying them for clients. And
what does that even mean? Like,
so this would be like, think about like a fixed wing, $25,000 aircraft with a highly, gimbal of a lens underneath. It could be a LiDAR, radar, or it just could be a high power lens. And you're taking pictures of crops. You're doing, we would do mines, open pit mines.
Oh, wow.
With LiDAR sensors, which, by the way, didn't work so good.
What's a LiDAR sensor?
It's ground penetrating radar. So you could actually see into the ground and the undulations of the ground and start mapping kind of where you're going to dig next.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And so it was funny. It was, the promise of the technology was amazing, right? They're like, oh my God, we can throw this drone up instead of having a helicopter and all this complicated stuff. Well, the technology was so new, it didn't really work that well.
Yeah.
So we're running around getting hired by these massive companies being like, oh, you're drone guys. Yeah, come fly these drones. And we'd fly the drones and we capture the images and we're like, the images kind of suck. And we're like, this is a problem, right? We were literally like a sewage pumping business. We're like, we're only as good as our next gig. And it was like, there is no value to this thing. So we finally figured out when we went to get insurance on our drones, it was totally wrong. The underwriters were massively overpricing it, and they were admitting it because they had no data. They had no idea how to price this asset that doesn't have people in it, and their algorithms and their underwriting and actuarial did not match this. And so that was our aha moment when we're like, well, what if we applied technology to fix that and gave you technology or gave you data and gave you the technology to actually book this policy rather than having to spend a very expensive FTE underwriting something you don't underwrite and loading that into the premium and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Same story. That's how we got into Insurtech. And so we pivoted very quickly from being a services business into building technology to solve a very specific problem around drones. And so fast forward 16, 17, we were very fortunate, again, all luck, meet up with Liberty Mutual, who was at the time trying to get into the drone space and underwrite it, but they had no technology. So we sort of waved our hands and said, we got it all. And if any of
like
them,
you meeting with the dean once again.
They'd all fully admit that we thought we were so smart and we weren't. They knew right through us, but they believed that we could figure it out. That's the whole point, I think, in the story. And we did ultimately build that technology and platform, which became today droneinsurance.com, and which became one of the first non-admitted on-demand commercial lines products across all 50 states. And so that was really our launching pad into, where we are today, which is gone from like a very bespoke point solution to now trying to be a much broader platform to power, this new category of embedded.
That's wild. So what's like the minimum drone size? Like anything?
Yeah. I mean, you think about it from an asset perspective, it could be, this big as, pretty small, and you can, buy cover for the day on that or the hour, whatever you want. And that can be anywhere from $30 to $3,000, depending on what kind of limits you want.
That seems crazy. It just seems like there's so many variables. Like it could just go so wrong so easily. Yeah,
there's a lot of variables. Although what's interesting is, and we've been doing this for a while, I can tell you, the loss ratios are incredible.
No kidding.
To the good.
Yeah, right.
And I think it's because the aviation community takes safety pretty seriously in procedures and process. And so I think if you stick to that, plus the automation in the technology, really, it's hard to go really wrong. You'll have little things here and there on the physical damage, but from a liability perspective, it's pretty good.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
So then are you providing product as kind of an MGA, or are you the carrier? How does that work? Are you providing to agencies? How do you get distribution?
Yeah. So I would draw a line in the sand between kind of the 1.0 of REIN, where we built a very purpose-built platform specific to drones. And that would be delivered directly to the customer through our droneinsurance.com, which is a property we own. Or we embedded it into other software companies that would power flight. So if you're a drone operator, like, hey, cool, I'm going to go fly today, and I got to plan my flight on the map, and you draw your flight, we were integrated inside some of those applications.
Wow.
Hey, and this was early on. This was like 2016. Yeah. So embedded was really not a thing back then.
Yeah.
And so that continues today, but what we've done is taken a lot of those learnings and sort of built a next generation platform, which is really about many to many. So we're more interested in enabling, the carriers on the legacy side to figure out how to distribute product into embedded, but not have to sit there and figure out systems and builds. It's more like, hey, how do I take a platform, modulate it the way I need it for my business, and start launching and learning and going?
I don't understand what that means.
So I'll give you a use case. It could be, we have customers like, Ryder Logistics, awesome group,
huge, massive. They have so much,
and they're awesome people, and they're very forward looking. Their whole goal is like, how do we create an e-commerce business out of our business? And so, what they wanted, their challenge was, hey, we want to be able to bundle in this insurance at point of sale with our customers that are buying trucks. So you have the leasing, it starts with leasing and goes all the way to the other end of the spectrum where they buy and dispose of the assets. So they really needed to power an insurance process at point of sale, which could be at the dealership, it could be online, because as you know, you can't go get a loan without having approval on the insurance side, certainly not on the commercial auto side. So there's a lot of complication there. And if you ask me, would you start in commercial auto again? Probably not. Super complex. But the challenge was, how do you take kind of the analog of commercial auto, carriers, and bring them into what is effectively a digital process? And so we were that connective kind of platform to make that happen. And now you've got companies like Ryder and the multiple carriers on the other end stacking up all kinds of different products. It can be an insurance product. It can be a financial product like a loan. So that's where we've evolved the platform, as sort of being that operating system or clearinghouse for both brands and carriers to bring that together.
But isn't that more of a services gig, because you're kind of doing the work? Because you're not building the logistics platforms for like Ryder.
No.
Name one of these huge companies. You're just embedding all of these various products within their workflow,
right? And you've got to translate.
Insurance,
you got to translate those products. Our platform translates those products so they actually can become embedded in there. And so that's part of the challenge, is you can't just show up and have an API and say, I'm good to go. That's like the past.
I gotcha. So they're connected into like your hub.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Right.
And then you have pre-built integrations with certain systems. So I assume rider uses some sort of system.
Right, like a CRM system.
Yeah, whatever it may be.
We can use Salesforce, pull in that data. We may use, some other type of validation for the customer. There's all kind of slew of different integrations, from, the actual, DOT side. So all of that you kind of bring into one area, and then you can leverage that data to build whatever product you want. And so
that's wild.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's super complex and hard. But it goes back to one of our original conversations. It's like, I always tell people we've got the technology chops. That's fine. And I'll prove that to you, no problem. But really the harder part is, are we compatible to figuring out the problem that we're going after? And we're not going to know what we don't know until we're committed. And that's, kudos to Liberty as a company who bet on us early and took a lot of brand risk on a bunch of, random dudes that didn't come from insurance. Mm-hmm. They knew they could partner with us. Like we sat down and we talked about our ethos and how we solve things. And they're like, all right, we can work with these guys. And it was not easy. It was a lot of hard stuff, but I just hope more of the industry can do that. And that's hard too, because everyone's moving them, so fast. But I just think this industry is half technology and half the other stuff.
I mean, I don't even know if it's half.
Maybe not half.
But I mean, it should be more than half, right? I mean, it should be mainly technology. But so then who's your partner? Is your partner the carrier? Is it the platforms that people are using?
Yeah. So I would say typically our customer would be the carrier who's using the platform to access our user, which would be the brand.
Gotcha. Okay.
That wasn't always the case. Early days we were doing more sort of custom work for brands, which was not a scalable process.
So you get leads then from the carriers. The carriers say, hey, we're working with this company. We want to streamline their workflow because we feel we're going to throw down more premium, blah, blah, blah. Like, help us with this.
Yeah, I'd say you learn in business school, it depends. So the carrier will come to us and say, look, we have these brand verticals we want to go after with these types of products. It can be at level saying, hey, can you guys help us figure that out from a relationship standpoint? And we'll put the whole thing together, like embedded in a box is one of our kind of products.
That's badass. So you're really their embedded partner.
You really becoming there. And that's our thesis is how do we enable a carrier to become a trusted partner for these companies, right?
Yes.
We're the enabler. We're not the front. Like we're trying to put them together and be the back end. And I find it's hard, right? Because you got to build you got to be the infrastructure, and you got to do things that sometimes are unnatural for some of these companies, which is like, I got to trust these guys to be my partner. But, we're fortunate to work with a couple, great carriers and hopefully more and, some good brands. So
that's really wild. So commercial auto, are you looking to get into other lines of business?
Yeah. So we do, still have our drone business and we're in commercial auto, and now we're, looking at, we're working with customers again on the finance side. So we're extending this embedded thesis, not just insurance, but into loans. And then we're also running the gamut. We've played on the commercial side because that was our founding DNA, but we're also being pulled into the personal line side, and we're agnostic. The system doesn't really care. Obviously there's complications and configurations. And that's what makes it fun and challenging. But that's what requires the partnership to figure that out.
That's interesting. And you don't have to say it, but typically these types of relationships, you get a piece of the action. It's typically how it works.
Right. It's more on the transaction side. So
you're going transaction as opposed to premium?
Well, however you look at it, it's transaction off the premium, right? We are a regulated, MGA. So, that was a tough lesson that I learned early on.
What's that?
Well, we
because you needed to be an MGA. To run the business.
Yeah. So 2015, it was like, we got this killer technology platform. Let's go, Liberty. We're going to launch next week. They're like, great, just send over your licenses. And we're like, sorry, like our mass business license. Is that what you want? They're like, no, your agency license. Like, are you a licensed agent? We're like, oh my God. So we scrambled. My partner and I took the exam and became insurance agents in all 50 states. And, again, that's
you are like literally the dude. Like, first of all, you're the pop-up guy. But outside of that, You're literally the fake it till you make it guy. 100%.
You just got to roll, man.
But like, what's funny is what you said earlier. It's like, and thank you for, they trusted in us to figure it out. But you know what it is? You trust yourself to figure it out. You do. You're like one of those dudes like, you know what, we'll figure it. And then you give people confidence in that because you're so sure that you'll figure it out.
Yeah. I mean,
right. Am I wrong in saying that?
I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, you can make life super complicated, right? And look, as a parent of 4, you can stress yourself out or all the things we all got to worry about every day. And my wife was here. She'd be like, what are you talking about? You're stressed all the time. I was like, all right, fine. But if you can just pull yourself back and sort of look at things, be like, all right, you know what? Like, we'll figure this out. Let's get smart people around the room. And if you don't figure it out, what's the worst that'll happen? Maybe you get another bite at the apple or something will, come to fruition. I mean, I'll never forget, and our clients probably fire us when they listen to these podcasts because I'm sharing all the fun stuff. But I remember. So
Don't laugh. I knew it.
Yeah, I knew it. This guy.
But it all worked out, right?
Right? Yeah. No, absolutely. And we had you can look up on the website a big auto OEM who is an investor of ours. And early on, we made this pitch, and we knew nothing about trucks or commercial auto. We just had this drone thing. And somehow they got our number and said, could you come talk to us about, we want to build some connected, insurance in the commercial truck business. Cool. So our guys went, and I wasn't at the meeting, and I called them after. I said, how'd it go? They're like, good news is we'll never do business with them. Like never, because we had no idea. It went horribly wrong. We didn't know what we were talking about. And you know what? Case in point, we stuck at it. We learned with each other. We figured out what the problem actually was that we were all trying to solve, and we put our heads on it and we solved it. And they became an awesome partner for us, and we're doing lots of fun things. So, sometimes those ones that are big no's can be, great yeses later on.
People are so afraid of doing any of what you just said.
Yeah.
Like generally speaking, yeah. Have you read the book Driven by Douglas Brackman by chance?
That might be on my stack because I've got a stack.
It's so good. So he talks about this, and basically his whole theory is there's 2 types of people. There's this farmer mentality and a hunter mentality. We all know that in sales or whatever, but it's deeper than that.
Yeah.
And like people, it's like 10% of the population is driven, as he says. Mm-hmm. And you just don't quit. Yeah. You just do not give up. Like you just keep after it, and you're just not stopping.
Yeah.
And success comes out of that.
Yeah.
And that may not even be the intent. And success is all relative to whatever that means, the individual. But it is just that. Like you are just like, you're like, yeah, so then I went and figured it out, and I just went and started this other company, and then we figured that out.
Yeah.
And then we did that, and that worked out, and then we did this other thing. Right. And even the losses, you're like, yeah, we kind of screwed that up, but we learned from it.
Right.
And then went and did this thing. Right. I mean,
yeah, no, it's 100%. We talk about it all the time. You just got to stay in the game.
Yeah.
Like if you really want to play, really understand, you have to be, intellectually curious about what you're trying to do. Like, I think that's a prerequisite for any of this. And if you're not, and I've been fooled myself a couple times on a couple initiatives where I'm like, I really want to figure this out. And then ultimately I was like, I'm not that interested in it. So you don't stick it through. Yeah. But I feel like with things that you're like, this is really interesting to me. I'd love to peel this onion back and figure it out. And you start peeling it back. You're like, sometimes you're like, oh God, this is a disaster. But, at the end of the day, and this running a big business, it's like one day it could be the people issue. Another day it could be a customer issue. It could be a regulatory issue. So many things can go wrong all the time. And it's like, how do you kind of have a framework to deal with that stuff and not let it just put you in the corner, sucking your thumb going, oh my God, I don't want to deal. Plenty of times I want to do that and probably do that. But to your point, you just got to keep going.
Just keep pushing. But not everybody does. They just don't. A lot of people just give up.
Yeah.
And then they blame.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. His theory, it's in our DNA.
Yeah.
Certain people are just wired. And like in interviewing the people that I've interviewed on this podcast that are all successful in their own way, kind of the common theme is like, they just keep freaking going.
Yeah.
Like, don't stop. It's just, no, I'm just going to keep doing this thing.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Yeah, no, it was actually funny you say that. with kids sports, which is,
Yeah.
we don't even want to go down that topic because we're going to get lost. But just as a quick snapshot, I was in, another lacrosse tournament in like 100-degree heat, miserable all day. Sitting at breakfast, I look up at the hotel, and it was Teddy Roosevelt in the Man in the Arena. And it was like the quote about the Man in the Arena. I never really paid attention. I was reading it, and the kids were like, Dad, we got to go. I was like, guys, just quiet for a second. I'm reading this. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like taking pictures of it. And I'm like, guys, this is what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
If you never even try, you don't get life. Like, this is what life is. Just go at it, see what happens. And if you're in the game, something's going to come out of it,
It all seems to work out. It's a weird thing, right?
Yeah.
It does. If you have a positive attitude and you believe that it's going to work out, you find a way. Not always, but 9 out of 10 times, my opinion.
Right.
That's what I've found.
Yeah.
Do you honor your successes? Do you feel like you're a successful guy? Do you ever say to yourself, you know what? I've like achieved this. Like I've done this. I've like won that. Like, do you do that?
Not really.
Yeah. See, that's another trait.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Either do I. It's like sometimes you got to step back and you got to look the wins because you still haven't like won. You just keep going.
Yeah. It's like it's the game that's the fun part. And look, we all have. It's in our DNA to. It's actually chemical, right? The dopamine hit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Get, right?
So we can go.
So we love the dopamine hit,
and
it's awesome when you sell a company and you make a win, and that's sweet. But God, if you think about all the fun things that you get to do and people you get to meet, like I get to come here and hang out with you, and God knows where the kids are right now. They're probably in the river somewhere. Who knows? But that's like, how cool is that?
Right.
That's what it's about, and. Yeah, we'll figure out all the other stuff and, the dot the I's and cross the T's.
I think people take stuff too seriously, man. You know what I mean? Like, generally speaking, like there's things to be serious about. Don't get me wrong here, but like people get so wrapped up in all that stuff.
Yeah.
Small details and all of that.
Yeah.
And just, I don't know. It just seems to all kind of play out and work out.
Yeah.
And you meet cool people. You live a good life.
Yeah.
You do good things. You believe in yourself and you execute, you do the right thing. Like you seem like a guy that honors their word. Like if although you're faking it till you make it, if you mess something up, you'd be like, look, I screwed that up.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to own it.
Yeah, that's 100%.
Right. Yep.
Right.
Yeah. You got to own it. And, that to your point, when people, when things don't work out and you don't own that, you don't learn as much as saying, God, it didn't work out. Why?
Yeah.
What happened there? Like, what did I do? Self-reflection. And, I have a CEO coach, and I'm like, this guy's going to flay me 10 ways a Sunday in front of the entire company. I'm actually kind of excited for that. He's going to really expose what I have to do better. It's pretty scary. I don't really want to do that. But at the end of the day, that's kind of part of the adventure is like, all right, maybe I need to look at some things that I need to do a little bit differently to be better.
That's right.
If I'm asking people to put more than maybe they should into something, then I better be doing the same thing. So what can I do? And it's like, if you start thinking about those things, and no different than climbing Mount Shasta, right? It's pretty daunting actually, but you'll figure it out.
Oh yeah, totally. You get through it. All that stuff. And I've talked a lot about this, like mountains and stuff. Like when you're in the thick of it, it's not always fun. Mm-hmm. You're like, what am I doing?
Oh God, no.
Right?
Type 2 fun.
Yeah. It's
only good afterwards.
Yeah, that's 100%.
It's not fun.
I've asked every time I've done a hard one, in the middle of it. I'm like, everybody asks, they're like, I don't know what I'm doing right now. Yeah. This is so stupid.
Yeah. The concept of the pain cave is like
the pain cave.
The pain cave. Yeah. I've done a couple of those, Jackson Hole, like, hey, let's just go with the buddies and go do the, whatever the mountain is next to Jackson. I'm like, well, it's kind of fun taking the gondola up. And they're like, no, we're not going to do that today. And you're like, okay, but I live in Boston. It's like a couple hundred feet above sea level. And the pain cave is massive and deep doing those things. But, if you can make it through and you get to the other side and you have that beer at 2 p.m. after being up at 3:30, man, you feel like you've done a lot.
I've been on so many hikes and I've been on a bunch of guided hikes where you're there with a bunch of random people.
Yeah.
And I'd say, I don't know, 6 out of 10 don't make it.
Yeah.
Typically.
Interesting.
They give up. You know, sometimes they get hurt, things like that. But they just don't. A lot of them just say, I can't do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'll tell you one time that the horse racing thing, is like, there is a pinnacle horse race called the Maryland Hunt, which is the most difficult steeplechase in the world, arguably. 28% finish. So it's not good odds.
There you go. Yeah.
And it was part of the kind of DNA that, you race in that. And I raced it a handful of times, fell a bunch and, managed to get, I don't know, third or fourth or something. But it's like, you keep going and that's your pinnacle and you go. And it was interesting when I knew my time was over, making a bid at it. When I got into my 40s and I was like, this is not happening. That was a hard one, right? To realize that you're not going to achieve that. Mm-hmm. Like I couldn't stay in the game anymore. Yeah. And I had to make that decision to be like, all right, well, the guys in the wheelchairs that come to the games or to the races, I don't want to end up like that. So it's like every now and then you really do have to assess like, all right, when do you, it's a hard one. When do you sort of say it's over?
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah.
Learn from it. Boy, love
that's
to
true. That's hard.
It's hard.
That's hard.
I'm not good at it, but you gotta stay cognizant of it.
It's funny. My buddy was talking. Me and my buddy were talking about this weekend because the air show is here in Milwaukee, and one of his family members retired. He's a fighter pilot, the whole nine, and he was saying that's got to be so hard for him. He's got to like cry when he sees those planes because jets, whatever you call them. You're that guy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, and so he's like, because when you retire, it's like if you're I'm into dirt bikes, as you know, like if you're a pro rider on a dirt bike and you retire, you can still ride dirt bikes.
Right.
That guy's retired. Like you're never getting one of those again.
Yeah.
And to see that's like the ultimate.
Yeah.
Like, and you did that.
Yeah.
You were there. That's got to be so hard.
Yeah.
like so hard.
Yeah, it's hard.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That'd be awesome to fly one of those things.
Yeah, that would be sweet. Yeah, we saw the Ep35. It's like the newest military jet. Yeah, and even if you're not into airplanes, this thing is insane. I mean, it like literally turns on a dime.
Oh, wow!
I mean, it looks like it's on a rope, just going around. It's loud. It's amazing. You'd like it. It's cool.
So tell me about insurance technology, embedded insurance, like. What do you think of this world? Now, there's a bunch of people that are entering that space.
Yeah.
I've talked to a bunch of them that we're an embedded company. This is what we do. And they seem to focus on like different lines of business. Like, some of them, like you said, they're personal lines, autos, a lot of auto guys out there, home, there's tons and tons of those life guys. That's been going on for quite some time. Yeah. But like, it seems like it's pretty hot. It's been hot for a while. Yeah. I mean, you're crushing huge accounts. Like you're doing real stuff.
Yeah.
It's not razzle dazzly stuff.
Yeah, no.
I mean, so what do you think about the business? What do you think about the industry? Like,
it's certainly become diluted, right? The whole embedded category, just because everybody is saying embedded. And my belief is it's a distribution channel,
100%,
and should be considered a distribution channel among all the other strategies. It's not
from a carrier's lens.
From a carrier's lens, and our belief is the carriers shouldn't have to go figure out how to overhaul their systems to go play in this one channel. They should be able to kind of borrow pieces to go play in the channel. So that's our thesis, and it should be as easy as enabling an underwriter or a product manager to configure a product and launch it from the carrier side.
Yeah.
I think from the brand side, it's super early still. But I mean, obviously everyone's dazzled by the potential. Mm-hmm. I think it's a lot more complicated than probably most think of just dropping in a line of code and you're
it's
good
way
to go.
More complicated.
Way more complicated than that. And you have to really work with those partners to make them realize. And I think one of our mistakes early on was like, you got to go all in and make this work. It's like, the secret now is how do you test super lightly to get the learnings to figure out if that channel is the right one for, let's say, that carrier.
Interesting. That's smart.
Because you don't want to go back a big piece of technology and go do a massive configuration in the hope that that channel or that brand will deliver insurance, right?
True, and you don't want to burn the bridge with your customer because of one deal because they couldn't. Yeah,
right. And you're burning your.
That's a big culture shift too. When you're going into like these huge organizations and saying, "Hey, when that happens, now you got to like click this button or whatever it is." Like that's got to be a huge pain point for you guys.
Yeah, it is, and
the adoption
and being precious.
Adoption's your enemy.
Yeah, 100 time and adoption are I guess maybe the same thing.
Yeah,
depending how you look at it, are huge enemies.
Yeah,
and being able to just be realistic about a channel and a brand and saying, all right, how do we get them to onboard? What's their makeup? Yeah, they may have 100 million potential customers, but if you don't have the right product presented in the right way, consuming the right information, and making that customer go through that process super simplistically, it's probably not going to go that well. But how do you start that before you go and invest a lot? So I think that's where it's really interesting. And that's why our belief is you can't have a point solution that says, oh, I've got a killer product with technology and I'm going to bring it to this market. That's awesome. People are going to do that, but you're going to grow so much. Where our belief is you got to have an agnostic kind of clearinghouse to get the category to scale and grow. And my bias is because I did it in the ad business. We did the same thing. We had a two-sided marketplace, right?
Very true.
We had advertisers that would put money with an agency, and that agency would buy media from Yahoo. That media sucked because you got nothing, but you use our technology and you're getting super qualified leads, and that's the game. So I don't look at it that much differently. Put aside the underwriting process. Like I get that's complicated and we deal with that. And, we learned our lesson on having many more insurance people, at the table at the company. We're probably 50-50 at this point. We were, 90-10, when we started, and that's a story everyone has, I'm sure. But you have to figure out, I look at it as you have to solve the insurance problem and the technology problem. And you can't just solve one. You can't just solve and be really good at this one insurance piece if you haven't solved how to bring that into the market that you're trying to target in a way that target market wants to consume. Nor can you be just amazing at technology and forget the insurance problem because you're creating more problems. So I always look at it sort of oversimplistically.
Dude, it's so easy for you to say though. It is so hard for people to do what you're doing.
Yeah, no, it's hard.
You do realize that, right?
I do realize it because I feel it every day.
I know, but people can't just start and do the thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
They can, but you just walk in there and you're just like, yeah, we're going to figure this out. We're going to get this done.
It's probably because I'm
how many people would just gold plate the hell out of some solution and this whole thing, and they work on it for 10 years and then they bring it to market and everybody shut it down and then they go crawl in the hole.
Yeah. That's not a great outcome.
No.
Yeah. No. But, truth be told, it's awesome having people who really know, how to do some of these things. We got a killer technology guy who's awesome dude.
Oh, no, it's different. You guys are on a whole nother.
Yeah.
Beginning, I'm saying.
Beginning is different story.
Yeah. You guys are crushing it.
Yeah, it's kind of fun at the beginning. Now it gets complicated. I gotta climb more mountains now to get my zen.
So all right, technology, embedded insurance, totally get it. Everybody sees big potential there. I mean, tons of money going into that. Tons of competitors. Like you said, it's getting diluted. What does the future look like?
I think the future, the category is so big. There's not one winner. We know that.
Right.
We just want to really figure out how do we get the embedded category to scale, because right now it's not scaling. It's very one-off. It's still a little niche-y and small.
I could see that.
And so what we'd love to do is be a part of that infrastructure that helps scale it. And there's multiple companies that will be a part of that ecosystem. We just want to start driving that ecosystem, right? And so how do we build great tools and technologies to enable both sides to start just doing more and more, just get more volume going. And that's hard because it's you can be really good at something, point solution, but then to scale that and try to grow it's limited. So I think that's going to be, for us, is going to be one of the big tricks. And I think the industry's got to struggle with that too, is how do you make embedded, not just a thing that people put on the conference title. Yeah, we're talking about embedded to like, all right, it's kind of part and parcel of everything. It's just a channel.
Yep.
But how do you make the channel really a part of the ecosystem?
Are carriers now, since this is your business, I would assume so, but are carriers now looking at embedded as a category within their distribution plan? Like, are they going like, hey, all right, we're going digital, blah, 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 and all this, and here's a slice that we feel we could do in embedded over the next year?
I think it depends on which carrier. I mean, we talked to a lot of them.
Well, I mean, Liberty, I know Liberty's been after digital for a long time. They were probably one of the first. I mean, whatever, people get mad at me about this. In my experience, I remember when Liberty put in place like somebody that was head of like digital distribution, like way before anybody else. And then they were doing it, and they were partnering with a lot of startups, and this is like years ago. I mean, they were, it seems like, ahead of the time.
No,
at least from the big tier ones.
And Liberty is like 15 companies, right? It's
totally.
So depending on what side of the company you're in, it's definitely here and here. But man, they are totally forward looking, and a lot of the carriers are literally in the past 3 months have become much more forward looking. All right, we've got to figure out this because it's coming from the top. Because the top sees what's happening and saying, all right, guys, and this is not about disrupting the agent. This is not about, this is all about, this is a channel. The channel is being pulled by these brands saying, hey, I've got a lot of customers. Yeah, we'd like to be able to engage in a partnership around insurance. There's not one carrier that can solve all the problems of a brand. So that's a challenge that I think carriers are trying to grapple with. Like, how do I co-opt with others?
Yeah, true.
And my belief is that just having an API is not good enough as a carrier. You've got to integrate that into something that's going to take that and produce value to that brand among other things that they're looking to do, other products. It can't be a one-off every time.
Right.
And none of these big brands are going to have the sophistication or the time and energy and effort to try to go build these bridges. So you got to have something to build that bridge in between. And that's where, we want to play. But look, who knows?
That's a great place to be, dude. That really
it's fun. But time is, time's tricky.
Yeah. I bet you run up against a lot of companies that just want to do it on their own. They don't think they need you.
Yeah. And we've been with those companies and they go off and try to do it on their own. And they ultimately sort of say, hey, okay, maybe this is a great idea. And some go out and go another way, but a lot of times that doesn't work out as well. It's internal competition just as much as external.
All right. A couple of questions. Couple of last questions. What tech do you see having the greatest impact in insurance within the next year?
Oh my God, what tech? Technology that can take friction out of the process is I just keep coming back to that. And I don't, that has lots of different swim lanes, and I don't know if I'm versed in all the different swim lanes, but I mean, the sophistication of the client and the customer, depending on the product, is getting pretty far beyond the current technology. And it even today, I'm going to go fly this weekend, and I didn't realize my renter's insurance policy wasn't up to speed, so I had to go back and figure it out. I was like, man, I just want to. Can I just go click a couple buttons and make this happen? And I was able to do that in 5 minutes. And I was like, that's value to me. I'm in Oshkosh in my camper. I don't really feel like talking to somebody. And I just, for that particular event, I wanted to have a seamless process. So more technology that can help that and protect the insurance problem, the technology problem, I think is going to be super interesting. Look, we've all talked about AI. We've been ones that have experimented with it. I'm not convinced that's there yet at all. I'm not smart enough to have an opinion on where that's going to go. There's a lot of cool people doing cool stuff, and
I don't see it yet. I get a lot of people that reach out.
Oh, sorry.
I get a lot of people that reach out and want to come on the podcast and talk about AI and their AI company and this, that, and the other. I just don't believe it yet. I don't see it until I really see it driving real value. It's just big. I mean, we don't have to get into all that, but that's interesting. That's interesting. So what's next after this? What's the next company that you're going to go figure out?
Oh man. I don't know. I mean, it's
this is a big one.
This is a big one. This is fun.
And it's early days. For
yeah, it's early days.
You know?
Yeah, I
you just sold your company 2 months ago. You said,
yeah.
The other one, that's
the other one. Yeah, but this is like, you know what it is too for me is like, I go back to my internet ad days, and I'm still best friends with my customers. After 20 years of being out of the business, 20 years.
Yeah.
A bunch of us just got together randomly in Boston.
That's awesome.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
We still have these relationships. They were my customers. They weren't even like partners. They were like people but we were defining a category back then, and they needed me and I needed them. Yep. And that was super fun. So I see the same thing happening here, which is awesome. So I think there's a lot of runway here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, that was really good, man.
Yeah, that was fun.
Thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely.
It was a lot. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's
fascinating
probably
story.
Way more than anybody wants to hear.
I don't know about that, man. Before we wrap up, advice to startups, people starting out.
Yeah.
What would you tell someone? Your son says, I'm going to go start a company. What would be like a piece of advice? What your grandfather say? Work before the day starts.
Yeah,
right?
Take care of business before business day starts, man.
Right. Like, what would you say?
I mean, there's a bunch of different things, but it goes back to like, just stay in the game, right? Just keep going and learning and figuring out. Everybody's got the capacity to do that. I'm sorry. I don't care what your IQ level is. Like everybody has the capacity to stay at it and consume and have an informed opinion on how to go after something and just go do it. And I think that's, there's a whole rabbit hole in the education system on how it doesn't do enough of that. And I've been involved in college, my alma mater, trying to help define, just create a curriculum where kids can go have real life experiences around trying to take an idea and put it into action. Because that process is pretty valuable, regardless of what you want to do with your life. And so that's where I would spend my time. Stay in the game.
Stay in the game.
Stay in the game.
Keep after it.
Yep.
All right. What's your favorite drink?
That's easy. It's a Casamigos Blanco with a spindrift.
No kidding.
Yeah.
What do they call? Isn't there a name for that? I thought there was a name for that.
Maybe it's like a Paloma or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's like COVID. That was a go-to with my wife and I. We were allotted one. And only one. It's like one ping only. It was like, all right, we cannot go down this slippery slope. But for me, I love having a good beer, but a good clean tequila with a spindrift, not a lot of sugar. Nice. Man, those are awesome.
Dude, we're going to go do that right now.
Right, good.
I got that, both of those things here.
Nice. All right. There you go.
How about who would you recommend I'd interview? Anybody in Insurtech you can think of, or just anybody in general? Who'd be good?
Actually, I tell you who would be amazing, and so he's he's probably one of the mentors in the Insurtech. Oh, he's absolutely one of the mentors in Insurtech space. So a guy, Jay Nichols,
okay,
and Jay is one of our advisors. Is like I think someone called him the Howard Hughes of reinsurance. So he's like a mad scientist with his brain. He's one of the most dynamic brains. Here's a guy who's been super successful, early start Ren Re, Ran Access Re, like all these reinsurance, but loves helping people.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I met him, through went to business school at Babson, and he was at Babson, and so we met through other channels, and I literally called him up and I was like, hey, I started this Insurtech business, but I don't know a lot about insurance. Literally his first conversation I had with him, and he's like, how can I help you? Like, I love when people just say, how can I help you?
Yeah.
And part of it is don't waste my time. How can I help you?
Right. Yeah, totally.
Right. But also it's like, all right, let's get specific. And he's been an advisor to us since day one.
Oh, that's awesome.
Watched us make all the mistakes and never was like, hey, you're making a mistake. It was more like, hey, what'd you learn from that?
Yeah.
He saw the train going down the tracks,
right?
But he wasn't going to step in and say, don't do that. You shouldn't do that. Like his ability to connect to, he's connected. He just sold Protective to Progressive. He was on NextGen's board. You want to talk about a guy who's good.
Yeah.
But his perspective on the insurance space is unbelievable, both from the technology side and the insurance side. And he's probably advising some pretty substantial companies and you never know it. Because he's not going to tell you.
Oh, wow.
So I would say he would be fascinated. You would love it. You get along with him well. I'd say he's a guy to bring on.
All right. Well, thanks.
Great.
Wow, Jason Griswold. What an awesome guy. What's unique about this episode is Jason actually came to my house and recorded this at my house, and we hung out, and he was in town for something, and he was here with his son and one of his son's buddies. And the kids rode the dirt bike track. He got out on it, and that guy can ride too. He can literally ride. That guy's legit. And we tore it up, and then we went out and had a few beers and, just hung out. Just an awesome individual. What did you think of the episode, Kristen? Jason?
I thought it was really good. I remember when he said he was going to, so I know he's outside of Boston. Like, why is he going to drive to Milwaukee? And then I realized the reason that he was up there was actually to go to this crazy airplane show or exhibit, right? Up in Oshkosh.
Yeah.
So
it's called the Fly-In. It's the largest in the world.
It totally makes sense.
Like a million people come to it or some shit. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I would say it totally makes sense with his background now, right? I mean, he's been in airplanes for a very long time, including being a pilot, which was kind of interesting to hear that he became a pilot just so he could continue to race, right? It was so he could be a jockey.
Well, yeah, just like he became an insurance agent so he could sell insurance in his company now. Yeah, no, it's super good, dude. I mean, one of the things I got to meet and spend some time with Jason not that long ago. I don't know him all that well, but when you meet really good people, and he is. Once again, it's like we always talk about this. All these great people on this podcast, and and hanging out with his son too. He's a great dad, great family guy. Really is great family in general. Just talking to him, it's cool, and the guy just gets it done.
Yeah,
not pretentious at all. You never know it about this dude. I love guys like that. The best.
I think what was again, it seems to be a common thread, but just figuring it out, that seems to be, he's been in different industries, to go from rich media, right? When there was no such thing as online advertising, he's kind of one of the founders of it, makes it through that company through 9/11, which, for those that were around and in business then, that was a struggle. And he comes out on the other side, like you said, with hundreds of planes. Then he gets into drones, when drones weren't even a thing. Now they're everywhere. And now he's in insurance. And along the way, he just figures it out. And it's always something new. So it's pretty cool.
He's not just in insurance. He's in embedded insurance. Embedded insurance is so hot right now. That's a real thing. It's funny. There's a lot of embedded insurance that you hear about, but it's kind of like when all these Insurtechs were going direct to consumer and all of that. Yeah. There's a lot of noise around it, but this guy's, again, he's doing it. He's getting it done. This guy just knows how to close deals.
Yeah.
He's that dude, I mean, embedded insurance is cool. It's a cool topic. There's a lot going on there. And there is some real stuff happening in that world. I mean, it's pretty neat. And there he is. He just kind of fell into it.
Yep.
Right. He's getting it done.
Yeah, no, it's, again, we've gone from people who grew up in insurance, when we first started the podcast, to now people that are falling into it, because of the pain they had as in other, I think he came into it because it was just a pain in the ass. Right. So, I think we're changing in terms of who is leading insurance. It's no longer those that it came up through, the training at IBM or the training at, name your national carrier. It's kind of coming into it from other places.
We've definitely had a few people from the training of IBM.
Yes.
Yeah, and again, his style, a lot of times when you talk to people that come into this industry, they come and they're kind of chest pumping, posturing in their own way of I'm going to do this better, smarter, or you guys don't know what you're doing, blah, 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 blah. And they kind of, typically people fall flat on their face. He's not doing that.
Right.
He knows it's difficult. He knows it's a pain, and he's getting after it. Right. Humble.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm actually excited that you actually got to do an in-person interview. We're finally getting to.
I know, right? I'd like to do that more often. So it's fun, and it's it's cool because we can hang out and whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, more to come there. Definitely got to keep those going for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
On to the next one. Stay tuned. More amazing people on the Insurance Technology Podcast.